Pragmatic Works team is excited to introduce CertXP. CertXP is not just a learning platform, it's a new horizon in technical exam preparation. Experience learning like never before, with elements of gameplay that make studying not just effective, but incredibly engaging. With our preloaded journeys, you can easily navigate through the vast array of certification options and choose the ones that align with your career goals.
Well, hello everyone and good afternoon. My name is Devin Knight along with Yasmini Brooks. And today we're doing a quick review or a question and answer session about the session that Yasmini did with you last week. Hopefully you were able to attend. Microsoft Project really focused on Project Desktop last week. And today we want to answer some of the questions that we just didn't have time for. And so we got lots of great questions. We got loads more questions than we probably have time for today. But we're excited to be able to share with you some additional content around Microsoft Project. It seemed like there was a lot of interest in that. So Yasmini, thank you for joining again for a little follow-up here. Some of the questions I think are kind of contextual around certain points in time during the session. So maybe you could even kind of fill in what you thought we were talking about in context there. But let's go ahead and start with our first question. And that is, can we do work by the job? So again, you might want to give us some context of what we're talking about here. So for example, a trade electrician, or would this be a cost? The trade would be by the job in my example. So maybe give us a little context first and then hop us into answering that one.
So during the session that we had last week, we were talking about how you can track the cost of your project. And you can track by phase. For example, if you have like phase one, you're going to know exactly how much that phase specifically costs. But a lot of times the phase one of your project, it's going to involve multiple different people. In this case of the question, multiple different trades. So what if you want to analyze the cost by your electrician, by your plumber? And the other thing that can happen is one trade can be working in multiple different phases. So let's say you want to analyze how much you're going to cost with electrician in a construction project, but the electrician is going to do some roughing in the beginning of the project, and then the electrician is going to come in another phase, later phase in the project, and do some like final touch-ups, install the light fixtures and stuff like that. So you can create groups, and there is a group by. Whenever you go to the View tab in Project Desktop, there is an option to sort and filter, and the third option would be the group by. There is an option that you can do a custom group by. So what people normally do is they create a custom column, and the custom column, for you to create one, you just have to go to the very last column that you have in your Project Desktop. If you go to all your columns list, the very last one will allow you to create a custom column, and then you can create whatever field you want to analyze later. So if you want to analyze by trade, you can create a custom column that's going to say trade. And whenever you adding tasks in your project, you can just say, well, this is on this trade, this is on this other trade. So you can just group by trade, and you'll be able to see that. And that does not apply necessarily for this resource case. You can do this for whatever field you want to track your project in the future. This way you'll be able to track not only cost, but everything else by trade. So that's a great question.
Awesome. Thank you for taking that one. All right. The next one I have for you is, if one project has multiple use cases, so let's say 4 to 5, is it possible to track all of the use cases in one project file? If yes, how do we do that?
So this is something that we actually cover, this topic, we actually cover in our Project Desktop class on our on-demand learning system that you can subscribe to. And this is also a topic that we cover on the bootcamp. We have a Project Desktop bootcamp coming up in the end of April, and we're going to have a demo dedicated for that specific scenario. So this is something that in project, it's called a master project. So if you have many different instances of a project, or if you are a manager who manages multiple projects, you can have individual files. And for you to use master project, you have to have individual files, but you don't have to track everything and manage them one by one. You can actually compile them all in one single project desktop file. So you can manage them all at the same time instead of you opening each individual file. And whatever you do in the master project will apply to all the projects that you have there. So if you update the schedule, it's going to update the source file. If you add resources, if you remove resources, whatever it is that you do, it's going to automatically update the source file as well. And before we go to the next question, I think I have had another question related to this topic. And the question was, what if the tests are linked? How can you kind of like do that? You can even create a master project with that. So if you have a project that can only start upon another project being completed, you can create relationships not only between tasks, but you can create relationships between tasks across different projects. So you can say this project here, task number 1 can only start upon the completion of the last task of project Z, whatever that you need to complete first. So great question.
That's great. And I'm sure many of you saw, I brought a graphic up on the screen as well around the upcoming Microsoft Project Bootcamp. So if you're looking for live training, I'm sure my marketing team will help put a link in the chat for that. There it is again. So that upcoming boot camp, end of April into March, where you'll be able to have, 3 days, right, Yasmini?
3 days. Yes.
Yeah. So a great class to kind of get you much further in depth. And I think you primarily focus on Project Desktop in that class. Is that right?
I do focus more on Project Desktop, but in that class, I will also cover how you can connect Project Desktop to Project Online. And when you connect Project Desktop to Project Online, you just open a window of many different features that you will have access to.
Great. All right, let's go back to the questions then. So next question I have is, if I start with Project for the Web, can I upgrade to Desktop and retain all the tasks and just add on, or would I need to start over?
So that is a tricky question, and that question can kind of like go both ways. So you can start in Project for the Web and go to Project Desktop as well as you can start on Project Desktop and migrate to Project for the Web. However, when we were doing the demo, you saw that not all the features, they are kind of like equivalent. So it's not like the two project versions, they are the same thing. One is a desktop version, one is on the web. The web has less features than what you would have in Project Desktop. And it also has different features, I'm going to say, than Project Desktop. So if you save a project in Project for the Web, there is an option for you to export that file into an Excel sheet. And then from Project Desktop, you can import a project from an Excel sheet. So that's how you would be able to transfer between them. Just be mindful that this transfer is not going to be perfect because not all the features will align. So you're going to have to map the different columns. It can be done. It's not complicated, but it requires just a little bit of work. Definitely easier than creating a project from scratch. I would say it's a little bit more complicated for you to do the vice versa. When you have a complete project in Project Desktop and you try to migrate to Project for the Web, because of the features compatibility, there are a bunch of items that will not go. So for example, cost will not go. Certain task relationships, they used to not go. Now the Project for the Web has actually added some additional relationships. So I haven't played to see how that is going, but it has some different compatibility issues. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is depends.
That sounds like a lot of technology answers is it depends, right? Okay, good. So another question for you, I think, is around kind of working with multiple people. So is it possible to work on a plan with more people at the same time, kind of like you do with Office 365 and Excel, how you can have an Excel spreadsheet saved in OneDrive or SharePoint, and you can have multiple people working on it? Do you have that same kind of idea with a project?
So that's the whole premise behind Project Online. So Project Online came for that because Project Desktop was, like, as you can imagine, a standalone application that you have in your computer. And the answer for Project Desktop is no. However, if you do publish your projects into Project Online, then you can definitely have multiple people collaborating and working on the project at the same time.
Awesome. All right, good, quick one there. All right, so next question then is, would it make sense to enter all that cost information in the assign resources box ahead of time? So I think you kind of did it as you go, but could you do it ahead of time?
So this question, I feel like it's one of those that is missing a little bit of the context because we received it during the live session. So I was adding the cost resources and I was adding them one by one. So I would go to like task number one and then add the resources and assign the cost to that specific task. So what I told you is that on project desktop, you have to add the cost for cost resources at the task level. So you cannot go to the resource sheet and add the entire cost of that contract, for example, ahead of time. You have to do this at the task level. So it really depends the answer for that. And when we say, should we enter all the cost information in the assigned resources ahead of time? The answer is yes. The problem is you cannot assign resources to all tasks at the same time. But you should do this ahead of time because when we're doing our project plan, we have to enter a cost estimation. For anyone here that have already worked on a project, you know that the estimation is never exactly what you're actually going to pay for. So that's one of the things that I feel like people struggle with the concept. When we are tracking costs there, this is not the cost that you're actually paying. You should not be tracking the cost. Oh, I paid this for this trade for this resource and I'm going to add the cost there after the fact. Actually, you should add your estimated cost prior to the fact, prior to even starting the project, so you know exactly how much you're going to spend. And then once you start the project, then there's another area that we didn't have the time to actually talk about it, where you would plug in your actual cost, because there's another portion of project that was designed to tracking this variance. So how much did you think you were going to spend and how much did you actually spend? So for people who work in construction, and I see that some people watching this live definitely do because of that first question that we got, project is amazing, and I would say that is widespread for people working in construction. You know that estimating costs of a construction project, it's hard. And a lot of people, they get frustrated because they are told, well, this is how much your project is going to cost, and then this is how much it actually costs, and then people run out of money, and it's a whole complex ordeal by itself. So the good thing about project is when you do that, when you compare your estimations with what you actually paid for, it makes you so much better at estimating. So it makes you better at giving bids to your clients. And this applies to any industry. So answering that question, the answer is yes, you should definitely plug the cost of everything, even though that's an estimated cost. And then you track to see if you estimated right, basically. And yeah, so short answer is yes.
Great. So one of the things I wanted to highlight, you mentioned the boot camp that we have coming up at the end of the month, or the end of April, excuse me. But can you tell us briefly also about the classes you've recorded for us? So we have some folks that are already on-demand learning subscribers. They can see some of the courses that you have developed over time. You've created like three or four different ones, right?
Yes. So we have a course on Project for the Web. So for those of you interested in only working online with people, you're not interested in tracking costs, you've known already, the limitations and the pros, because Project for the Web has a ton of pros, and those pros are more kind of like designed around collaboration. So usually for a project that's going to be more collaborative, and we even got a question about it in that question about, oh, can I work with Project Desktop with others like Office 365. If that's what you need primarily, I would say Project for the Web is definitely a tool that you should be looking into. It might be all you need. So I have a course on that for people that are more interested in collaboration, easy of use, getting quick to planning your project. So that's one that you will be able to find on our on-demand learning system. I have a full course on Project Desktop, and I believe that course, if I'm not mistaken, is a 7-hour course. It's a pretty comprehensive course. We talk about everything over there. So we're going to cover all the topics that we're talking about here. That group by feature for you to track the different costs by different trades, like we mentioned, master project, connection to project online. So all of that is going to be covered on the on-demand learning system as well. We mentioned project online. We don't have a course dedicated for that yet, but we might come up with something as soon as we have a little bit of extra time.
No, that's great. In our marketing team, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see in the chat, we put a link to if you want to sign up for a trial to get a little peek of the courses that we offer. Don't forget also that when you subscribe, we have our Cert XP platform. Yasmini's actually worked quite a bit on that as well, mainly around Power BI and also Fabric. But we have, which by the way, a little sneak peek, Yasmini has been working really hard on creating the DP 600 certification test, practice test with inside of Cert XP. And I want to brag on Yasmini a little bit. She actually found out yesterday she passed that exam as well. It was in beta until yesterday, so she wasn't even aware of whether she passed it or not when she took it, because they don't tell you on beta tests. But big congratulations to Yasmini while live here with everyone. She worked really hard to study on that. And then also, she's working really hard to help you study for that with our Cert XP platform. We're hoping to have the DP 600 practice test available in the next short few weeks. She's really close on it. So exciting stuff there. All right, let's take at least one more question here. We have loads more. It's just we've already gone about 15 minutes. So let's take one more here to wrap up. And I like this question to wrap up because it's a little bit of tell me about the future of where project is going, what's coming next. And if you've been looking at any of the news around project and some of the other tools that Microsoft has, there's a little bit of a synchronization of them coming together. So tell us a little bit about what's coming up. What will Planner look like in the future? As far as you know, it's kind of an indeterminate amount of time when that will happen. But tell us what you know about what the future of project looks like.
So regarding Planner, I forgot to mention that we also have a course on Planner on the on-demand learning system. So I forgot about that one just because of the name. But it's actually a great one. We talk about power automation involved in Planner, so really good. Regarding Planner, so Microsoft has released a note, and this is something that causes confusion to people when I get asked about this all the time. Microsoft released a note a while ago. It's been a while, where they said the project online. So I'm not talking about project for the web, and I just want to kind of like clarify the terms because they are very similar. I'm not talking about project desktop. Project desktop is going to stay. Project for the web is going to stay. But Microsoft released a note saying that project online was going to be retired. Project online, as I mentioned, is that one that allows that connection between project desktop and the cloud. So you can collaborate, so you can do stuff on the cloud, so you can use Power BI and so on. So they said that, but as we mentioned here at the same time, there are some compatibility issues. So they even said, even Microsoft released a note, but they said that there's no timeline in mind for this to happen. So they are working behind the scenes to kind of like streamline. What Microsoft is trying to do is Project Desktop requires a little bit of training, a little bit of work for you to get used to it. And that's why we're actually like doing this session, because people want to learn more about it. Microsoft is working to make it easier and simple. And that's where Project for the Web was introduced. And I'm not trying to go away from the question. I know that the question is about Planner. So I'm just kind of like getting there. So Project for the Web was introduced to try to simplify Project Desktop in a sense, make it easy for you to use. The idea that Microsoft has is, well, if you can, just go to your cell phone, download Uber app, and you can do everything inside the app without training. That's what we want people to do with Project. We want them to be able to just open Project and do things without needing to train. They want something to be very streamlined. So then they released Project for the Web and Planner. And there was a note a few months ago, I believe January, we still had the notes in my Project for the Web. So whenever I would go to Project for the Web, it would say the Project for the Web was going to be moved to Planner. Because as of right now, Planner does not allow you to have those task relationships. So you cannot have like one task depending on another. Planner will allow you to have boards, and then you can add tasks in boards, and you can kind of like manage your project in a more agile way, I would say. So they are trying to move Project for the Web. I believe, and this is only my personal opinion on this, that because of the names, Project Online, Project Desktop, Project for the Web, the names can be a little bit confusing. So I think they were trying to move Project for the Web to Planner. So we have a more separation here. So it's easier for people to navigate between the two different features, the two different tools. And I don't know if they were going to do that or not. Recently, I have not seen that warning anymore. So I honestly do not know what's happening behind the scenes over there. But I know that they're trying to streamline the whole process. And to finally answer the question, will Planner replace all of this? The short answer is no, because so far, Planner is missing a lot of the great features about Project Desktop, in my opinion. Not only tracking costs, because tracking costs is easy. You can go to Project for the Web, you can create a custom column, and you can call that column cost. You can say that that column is going to be a sum, and you can just add numbers over there, and that column is going to automatically sum everything for you. So it's a indirect way for you to track costs in Project for the Web. So that's not, for me, the key thing that's going to differentiate the two features. But one thing that you cannot do in Project for the Web is set baselines and track variance. And for me, this is one of the things that make projects so great. Because of that, making you a better estimator makes you better at your job in general. You can win more bids, you can be more profitable. Because if you put a bid on a job and you don't estimate it right, you might lose money. So I feel like the best thing of Project Desktop is the ability to set baselines and track variances. And this is not available neither on Planner or Project for the Web as of today. And I am not aware of a workaround way around it. So the short answer is no. Even though Planner is great, Planner will have its own different kind of like use case. It's great, but it would not replace Project as of today.
I go back to when Yasmini in my head here was first explaining to me Project Online, Project for the Web, Project Desktop, and I was utterly confused. So I think you are, and I'm still sometimes confused. I still mix up the names, but I think you're right. It probably is to maybe fix some of that confusion a little bit. The planner, that makes a lot of sense, I think, to me. But no, that's helpful. It's interesting to see where a lot of this is going to be going over the next 6 months to probably longer than that even. So really, really cool stuff. There were lots of other really good questions. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today. I think we had 3 extra questions. That might be great YouTube material that Yasmini can do over time as well. But I want to thank Yasmini for joining us today to take a bunch of these follow-up questions. I also want to remind you that we do have a session coming up next week. Our marketing team's putting that on top of us right now that you can sign up for. That's going to be me. I'll be doing a Copilot session, Copilot for Microsoft 365. Watch our preview video that we did I think it was yesterday. Yeah, we did it yesterday. So watch that if you want to see what do you need to have for that session. We're going to be covering some stuff that you can do for free, and then we're going to be covering some other stuff that really comes with a paid license of Microsoft 365 Copilot. So regardless of whether you have the paid license of Copilot or not, join us because you probably at some point will be using some of those features, whether you have the paid version today or not. So make sure you join us and hang out for that session. But again, Yasmini, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll let you kind of sign us off.
Thank you, everybody, for attending this session here. I really like the questions. I ended up getting a ton of good questions, and I was tasked with the mission to selecting just a few to show up over here. So I hope to answer most of your questions. If not, I will be releasing some YouTube videos. And if you have the time, just go ahead, check our website, making sure you check our ODL courses on all these topics. We have the bootcamp coming up. So just bear with us, and you're going to keep learning more about projects. So thank you so much.
Struggling to integrate Microsoft Copilot in your daily work routine? Join us for a really exciting session that we have coming up on Copilot in Microsoft 365, where we're going to explore all of the different ways that Copilot integrates in with some of your favorite tools like Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, Excel, and there's loads of fun ways that you can leverage Copilot to be much more productive with your time. We're going to look at lots of different use cases as well as answer questions that you have about Copilot, so we're excited to have you join us, and we'll see you there.